This is Scott Nelson, who is facing first-degree murder charges after killing a nanny in Orlando, Florida. Nelson was recently released from a 25-year prison sentence for a bank robbery. After he was let go from his painting job, he decided to plan another robbery. Nelson broke into a house with a knife where a nanny was working as a caregiver. He kidnapped her, threw her in the trunk, and drove to a local ATM so he could withdraw cash. Nelson then drove to a remote location and stabbed her to death before ditching her body and the car, where he was later arrested. On trial, Nelson argued that the government was to blame.
You bought zip ties?
Yes, I did.
You bought duct tape?
That'd be correct.
You bought a knife?
I sure did. I bought that material because I had a plan in mind of how I was going to survive being thrown on the street again for what? The third, or was it the fourth time by the government, be it state or federal? And, you know, once you kick a dog enough times, they tend to bite back. And really, they just don't care anymore.
Nelson continued testifying, showing no emotion, and finally admitted to the murder.
Somebody was going to pay for how you've been treated.
That is very accurate.
Who killed Jennifer Fulford?
I did.
He took the stand during the penalty phase, and this is what he had to say.
How has your mental health been affected by your previous incarceration?
I am a homicidal maniac.
In the end, Nelson was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. This is Jalil Smith Riley, who is facing charges for murder in Michigan. Smith Riley was involved in an armed robbery on November 16, 2013, in Norwood, where he and two other men approached a parked car. Inside the parked car were 20-year-old Porsche Brooks and her boyfriend, Aaron Martin. Smith Riley knocked on the window with a handgun and forced Martin, who was in the passenger seat, out of that car. Jalil then proceeded to go through Aaron's pockets and demanded his cash. Once Jalil had taken every dollar Aaron had, he then took his life with a shot to the head, causing permanent brain damage. However, Jalil wasn't done there. Right after shooting Aaron, he then leaned into the car and fired at Brooks, who was sitting in the car twice. She died 3 days later. Fortunately, Martin survived the shooting but sustained serious injuries. Before the judge announced the sentence that Jalil would be facing, Porsche's family got the chance to address the jury and the man who took their daughter away from them. Sharon Brooks, Porsche's mother, brought the box containing her daughter's ashes to the courtroom as she had for previous court dates. She stated that Smith Riley had ruined her life and killed her identity as a mother of 3.
This is what I have left because of his greed, his selfishness, his complete disregard of and disrespect of others and life. But as you can see, I get nothing back except the reality that she is gone.
Tia Marie Brooks, Porsche's sister, also spoke emotionally and requested that Smith Riley be handed the maximum sentence.
Deal with life without Porsche, so he should deal with life without parole.
Then Aaron, who Jalil shot in the head, spoke to the court.
She was truly an angel. She is. I have to speak about her in the past tense because I know she's still here with us. And she will always be here.
As if Smith Riley's crime was not outrageous enough, his reaction to his sentence was even more dramatic. During the trial on August 11th, 2021, Smith Riley pleaded guilty to aggravated murder and attempted murder. However, he later decided to withdraw his guilty plea against the advice of his attorneys. From the beginning, this was an emotional day for the families of both of these victims. But when Smith Riley decided to reverse his plea halfway through the sentencing hearing, they were shocked, and his attorneys were too, in part because it put the death penalty back on the table. Prior to receiving his sentence, Jalil was heard apologizing in court in what appeared to be a last attempt at showing remorse. Additionally, Jalil's attorney made a final attempt at saving face.
He can't go back in time and undo what he did.
Despite the tears and apologies, Judge Charles Kubicki, presiding over the case in Hamilton County Common Pleas Court, denied Smith Riley's request and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The 23-year-old, who is currently rotting behind bars, collapsed to the floor of the courtroom upon receiving his sentence. Smith Riley also received an additional sentence of 11 years for a related attempted murder charge. This is Ricky Hand, a Springfield man possibly facing new charges tonight after he throws urine and feces on his attorney in court. Hand, who is facing charges for multiple robberies in Ohio, had been on a robbing spree, hitting numerous local convenience stores late at night and running off with some extra cash. However, this crime spree would soon come to an end the night he decided to try his luck with John's drive-thru. In the footage, we see the owner of the shop beginning to close down for the night. Little did this small business owner know there was an armed Ricky Hand lurking around the building. As Ricky began to make his way to the store, he's greeted by the owner, who is armed and begins firing to scare Ricky off. After this failed robbery attempt, the shop owner called the police to inform them that there had just been a robbery attempt that resulted in a man getting shot. It would only take a couple of days for Ricky to admit himself to a hospital in order to treat the bullet wounds he left John's drive-thru with that night. It was here police arrested and questioned him about that night. When the case went to the courtroom, Han was sentenced to 40 years. The reason the judge gave Ricky such a long sentence is because they were also able to prove he was guilty of carrying out a string of robberies across Springfield, Ohio. Han lost it when he heard that he would spend decades in jail. He reached for bottles of his own excrement and urine, which were hidden in an arm sling, and threw them at his lawyer in court. As a result of the courtroom incident, Han was charged with an additional 5 counts of harassment with bodily substances, 1 for his attorney and 4 for the deputies present. He's also charged with obstructing official business and retaliation.